Welcome back to our international trade segment dealing with macroeconomics and growth. So last time out, we were looking at absolute and comparative advantages, and we were talking about the need for trade. So what we want to get into here is the idea of trade barriers and agreements. So things that get in the way of utilizing our comparative advantages and things that help out or framework that promotes using our comparative advantages. So that's what we're looking at: winners and losers of trade treaties, blocks, and barriers. Notice how blocks is spelled, so it means groups. How are consumers, producers affected? And then look at current policies and their impact. So traditionally, we think that trade is bad because it goes across borders, but just remember, it's the idea of supply and demand just at a greater scale. It's mutually beneficial exchange, and a big thing is jobs, but lots of people would argue that jobs are more going away because of technology, because we're more productive. So check those out, pause the video if you want, but we're going to get into these terms. So the ideas of treaties are agreements to trade between countries, where blocks are regional trade. So there is trade in these two scenarios, treaties and blocks. Again, notice how blocks is spelled. Versus barriers are anytime trade is limited or hindered. So get those down, pause the video if you need. So the goal of trade treaties and blocks is to promote trade. So the World Trade Organization, the European Union, the North American Free Trade Agreement, which no longer exists, has been updated. So eliminate or reduce tariffs or barriers, raise standards of living, lower prices, and create international peace. As the globe gets more interconnected, the promotion of trade is more and more important. Versus barriers are limiting trade. So check out this Cuba car scene. Look at limited trade or embargoes are an example of a trade barrier. Quotas, or now coming up a lot in the news is the idea of tariffs. So looking at tariffs and it's important to know who pays a tariff. It's if the United States puts a tariff on a foreign country, it's not the foreign country that pays the tariff. It's anybody in the United States that imports the tariff good. They'll pay that tax. So the whole idea is protect domestic industries and domestic jobs within that industry that is tariffed. So when we're looking at winners and losers with trade, consumers and the countries that trade benefit. They win because they receive stuff for cheaper. Any company, producer that uses the product wins. So for example, if there's free trade on wood, let's say, well, any company that uses wood, like a construction company, will be a winner. The losers are domestic wood producers. They lose revenue to foreign, this should be producers. They lose revenue to foreign producers if the foreign stuff is cheaper, okay? But those industries win when there are barriers. Domestic producers, domestic jobs win of the item that is limited. So let's just use steel, because there are steel tariffs right now that the United States has on the country of China, 25%. Steel producers in the United States and steel workers in the United States are very happy. Their product now is cheaper, 25% cheaper, possibly, than a foreign producer's product, a foreign steel product. However, and this is important to think about, any consumer that purchases a product with steel now has less options. Any company that uses steel, like let's say a nail producer, well, nails are made out of steel, so they have to buy the steel. That's more expensive. How come? There's less options available, so they are losers. So you can watch these couple videos on trade wars to get an idea of why they're good or bad. Finally, we'll look at this concept called foreign exchange. So let's just assume there is trade, and this is really easy. It's called Forex. It's demand supply. We've been doing this all semester. So it's demand supply, but it just so happens to be of currency. So we want to look at exchange rates and how a currency appreciates and depreciates. So how are exchange rates created? It's just the demand and supply of currency of one or another. So the US dollar to a euro. One US dollar will get you 0.92 euros. One US dollar will get you 0.78 British pounds. $1 will get you 64 Indian rupees or 1.32 Australian dollars, 1.34 Canadian dollars. You get the idea. So every currency has a different exchange rate compared to another. Look at the euro compared to the Indian rupee versus the United States compared to the Indian rupee. It's different exchange rate. Why? It's all based on supply and demand between two countries. What are they supplying and demanding? Goods. In order to get those goods and services, they need to spend money. So that's what it is, very simply. So look at these scenarios. Will there be more or less trade or need for currency? Yes, there will be. Will there be more or less trade? Oh, we have more money. What do you think we're going to spend it on? Not only stuff in our country, but in other countries. Will there be more or less trade? Well, we're probably not buying stuff in Japan. And we'll skip the interest rates. We'll just look at Japan. Interest rates get kind of complex, so let's keep it simple. Japan places tariffs, more or less trade, less trade. So there's a change in demand. If you can sort out the change in demand, you'll be able to sort out the rest of these changes. So this is the US dollar compared to another country's. This one looks like it's the euro. So why would another nation demand our currency? Well, they want our stuff, or they want to save money in our country. So why would you supply our currency to other nations? We want their stuff. So let's just look at a practice example. The United States is exporting more goods and services to the United Kingdom. So this is the US dollar. Well, in order for the United Kingdom to get stuff from the United States, they need our money. How come? We can't pay our workers in pounds, British pounds. So the demand for our currency increases. The demand for our currency, when we're talking about international trade, is by another country. Who supplies the US dollars? Oh, the United States does. So if there's going to be trade, you should figure out which currency is demanded. Again, look at this. The United States is exporting more goods to the United Kingdom. United Kingdom's demanding our stuff. So they will need our US dollars. When there's more demand for your currency, it appreciates. It becomes more valuable. So when a currency is demanded more, it appreciates. When a currency is demanded less, it depreciates. So you can see that visualization right here, just what I drew out above. It appreciates in value. What happens when you see two at the same time? Let's read this scenario. There's high inflation in the United States. Where would we purchase our goods and services? Well, we'd purchase it from somewhere else. We'd purchase it in Japan. So that would mean Japan's currency appreciates. There's more demand for their money. Well, what happens on the US side? So think about this again. Who supplies US currency? Not a trick question, the United States. So in order to get Japanese currency, yen, because we demand it, they supply it, we need to give up our currency. Right is more, left is less. You'll notice that these fluctuate together. Does that happen every time? It does. So if there's less demand, the supply would shift left. Because there's more demand, there's more supply. Just look at the demand to sort out if the currency appreciates or depreciates. So which is it appreciated in this scenario? The yen, because there's more demand, which means our currency is less valuable. It depreciates. It goes down compared to previous equilibrium, where the Japanese currency goes above. So go through a couple of these problems, practice, and you'll be in a good spot. Until next unit, our last one, enjoy, and we'll talk to you then.